between segmenting by the number of accounts or the number of users or the deal size. Also by, are we doing better in SCM or CI, or, how are we doing in security? What are the correlations between these use cases? So we have done phase one where we have found some initial findings. And the idea is to let us understand where are we doing well and why, and how can we double down on that, and where are we not doing well, and be able to double click into that, because this will now be followed by some questions and answers with the sales teams to understand specific opportunities. This is more of a data-led aggregate analysis. Colin, if you want to add to that any detail that, at a high level, and then we can answer specific questions.
I mean, I think you encapsulated it well, or summarized it well. Essentially, this phase one effort was focused on kind of working with the data that we have, right? That we already have kind of captured within Salesforce and other data sources, and seeing what the data told us from a segmentation standpoint, where we have clusters of success, where we have struggles. A couple of things put up here was like the timing was an example of our success rate for how long things are out there. Phase two, kind of taking some of these key findings around where we're winning, and what kind of competitive situations, what are the key use case combinations, and then following that up with a series of interviews, further conversations with sales leaders and customers alike. So, and I'll just say a couple of the key things that were just at top of mind, that were particularly startling, or not startling, but interesting, was that we were seeing some significant wins in particular associated with the CI combination of the CI and CD use case, on par with what there have been some historical focus around our classic SCM CI use case pairing. So just seeing that from our own sales data, keeping that in context was an important insight. I don't know if that helped, but feel free to.
Thanks. So the takeaways are people use SCM and CI together, and deals older than 100 days we're likely to lose. So we have to try to close them before that.
Yes, there's some other takeaways around what's not working. Specifically, there's also some interesting takeaways around our customer base in terms of core conversion rates, being able to upsell or convert folks from our free offerings, and how successful are we with that. But we still need to dig in further to see what the actual kind of growth trajectory of those opportunities looks like.
And so I'd be happy to set up a call to walk you through the initial findings. There's a deck, and we've presented it to McBride and Todd, and looking at where do we go next. It includes a number of opportunities in each segment, average amount we won or lost in here, win percentage, use cases in these opportunities, if there are combinations, win loss percentage for use cases, looking at it from a competitor lens. We also looked at different segmentation of industries, and where we have more deals and less, where do we win more versus less. We also looked at where the sources of these leads are coming from in these segments. So there's a lot more to that. I mean, this was at the highest level. We're happy to present this as a separate session to everybody.
So Ashish, you say there's a deck. I see 2 links on the slide, but I don't see a link to the deck. And and I can't rapidly find that from any of the issues.
I will link it to this. This was something that was just came in, was presented. Well, it's been 3 or 4 weeks, and we're looking at where to go next with it. It's in Google Docs. I'll put a link to this. Colin will put a link to this.
Yep.
Thanks.
Second question we have here is from John Coughlin on slide 22, which says, how does talking with your customers help your team?
Yeah, Ashish, just so I can add some additional context on that, I guess, the bigger question is, what's the kind of goal in these conversations with customers? And is there, value in bringing the wider community into those types of conversations? Or is there something specific that you get from customer conversations, for your team?
Right. For us, customer conversations lead to a number of different benefits and input mechanism for our team. Let's take the example of messaging and positioning. If we, are talking about the company or the product in a certain way, one of the first ways we can learn about whether that's working or not, or what the follow-up questions are, or what they understand or not, is actually being those conversations. Otherwise, we are training sales and other folks to go have those conversations and getting input. Secondly, it helps us kind of like also understand and dig into, by asking discovery questions, other questions, what are areas that really concern them, understanding their challenges, what the personas are like. So definitely number one, like in understanding how to talk to them, how to speak their language, what are their main problems, it really helps us, right? And then, we have a function that does customer case studies and references. So it's really important to kind of like be in touch with them, understand what they're willing to do or not. There's the customer advisory board. So, having that special kind of meeting every 4 weeks where we can learn of their challenges at an executive level or a user level, the ability to interact with them, the ability to kind of feed this back into product, right? That's also one of our core functions of what's working and what's not working, bringing product to the table. I mean, these are some of the things that, are very valuable customer interactions for us, among other things. Does that help answer the question?
It does. So I guess a follow-up, on the community point, like, do you think that there would be value in having, more conversations with, kind of the community around GitLab, whether it's contributors or folks that are, potentially using free versions of the product, or is your focus really just on those customer conversations right now?
No, absolutely, with users as well. I understand there's a user, focus, there's marketing focus on users, but again, on many different levels. As we do kind of like the monthly cadence of release messaging, as we kind of look at, okay, where do we want to focus on? What quote unquote capabilities and features, are more important to them? We understand it from, sitting in the organization, but it really helps to kind of get that outside input. Plus, customer references doesn't always mean that we have an executive with a managing director title talking well about our product. We would love for more users to be giving us quotes, to be letting us, know on how they use the product, what they find useful, why they like. Let's take the example of comparisons that we work on. Would love to get more input from the user community. You and I talked about that, on kind of validating or pointing out, what's missing, or, what we're not talking about, or providing quotes, kind of talking about why they like GitLab or why they don't like GitLab. So there's many different venues and many different conversations we want to have and should be having with the user community. Designing workshops, for example, that Dan's team does. Does it meet their needs? We could sit in a box here and design a workshop. We think it works, but does it really track? Like, did we hit the right points and what their curiosity is about the product, what their challenges are? So we need that conversation going both ways.
Thanks.
And I would just add to just yes, from the customer, from our in the sense of the customer, particularly at least with the project that that we're working on, we're not necessarily, we view it, we're looking at it from a product and what are people kind of buying perspective, but we are taking into consideration the downloads as well. I think we'll get to a point in later phases where we will want to absolutely work with y'all and work that in. Cool. Thanks.
Looking for more questions. They can be verbal. I would prefer them to go in the Google Doc agenda. I'll put them if it's a verbal question. William, if you're on the call, maybe you want to talk a little bit about slide 14 and talk about, what is Pendo and what are we trying to achieve with that project. It's a very interesting project, but I'm not sure everybody knows about it.
Yeah, I'm happy to chat for just a moment. And then I'm off the call early to a webinar, but I am very excited about Pendo specifically and more generally about GitLab's growth efforts. And so historically at GitLab, we have not had a focused growth team. We've recently hired more for this. We have some growth PMs, EMs, and typically growth is a cross-functional effort. So it usually involves marketing, product, UX, and engineering in order to move users through a path that makes sense to them. So as they discover and onboard in the product and adopt greater and greater usage. So essentially with growth, you're trying to get more users and you're trying to get the users that are using your product to use your product more. And very often the reason users don't adopt your product is because it's difficult or confusing. And so by running data-driven experiments, you can find out things and learn from your customers in an aggregate sense. So a lot of what you've heard about so far with product marketing is we talk one-on-one with customers and we get that qualitative feedback from a rich dialogue with a single customer one-on-one or in groups. But then what's also equally valuable is the quantitative data. When you can look at what is the path through the website, let's say, what are the pages from when a user lands on the website from, let's say, a particular marketing campaign to the time that they signed up? What were the key pages? So we can find out things like what pages are performing well, what pages tend to help convert and what pages don't. This is a really exciting part that GitLab is ramping in, and you're going to hear more about it. And so as part of this, we use different tools in order to do growth. Here at GitLab, we use a few tools, and one of those we will start using is Pendo. So I can share a little bit about my involvement with this, but it's been a cross-functional project. You will probably hear about this from multiple teams, and Todd can share more of the effort. But in particular, Pendo is a very exciting tool. I have, in my career, used a lot of different growth tools and data analytics tools, and I personally really like Pendo. The segmentation is really nice. So when you want to ask questions, for example, of people that visited the Kubernetes install page, how many of them also, let's say, bought an upgrade? And so you want to find out the segment and you want to find out the behavior. Pendo makes that really easy. So we did a proof of concept. The decision has been made to move forward. We're going to start to implement Pendo. So I added some links there. I also want to just give a big shout out to Shane, who is my partner in crime. That was really a team effort between product marketing, myself, and analytics, Shane. And so we did that one together.
Thank you, William. A question from Kim, which is, what is the importance of the EAPT, which stands for Enterprise Planning Tools and Enterprise Architecture and Planning Tools, Gartner recognition for the Gartner Peer Insights? Colin, I'd love for you to answer that. But before you do that, I do want to say this is our second Gartner Peer Insights Customer Award. And it is really important. I'll let Colin answer that as he leads it.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Ashish, and thanks, Kim, for asking about that. Folks, this is a really big deal. As many of you know, there's an increasing emphasis on peer review sites and in general, and in particular within the world of peer review sites, where end user customers, users of software products in particular, are providing reviews of products and companies providing that. Gartner, over the last couple of years, an industry analyst firm, has been investing in building out, extending their brand and the power of their brand and influence to this community in the form of Gartner peer reviews. We, as Ashish noted, this is now our second Customer Choice Award. What this means is Gartner's put in this program in place to recognize key vendors whose reviews, frankly, are outstanding on a number of measures. The qualitative measures of people's satisfaction with the products, with the functionality, with the support that they're getting, with the company itself, the direction of the products, et cetera, as well as the distribution of that review base. So the quality of the reviews and the input from that. Long story short, now very few vendors achieve this kind of level of recognition. It's something that we want everybody to be aware of. We should be talking about it, sending out links to folks appropriately to help us support this kind of virtuous cycle of generating a very positive view in a very impactful way. The first Customer Choice Award that we achieved was for our presence in the application release orchestration market as well. For a vendor, so young, so new to the market, to have products with customers expressing their love, right, for what we're doing every day in this kind of influential forum is important.
And I want to add to what Colin said. A couple of things. One is to make an entry into these different categories of awards is difficult enough because there are established vendors there. So you have to persuade not just Gartner, but also get a critical mass of our customers and users to talk about us and to give us ratings. So there was a lot of effort from the entire GitLab team to mobilize on our behalf, like whether it's customers or users, et cetera, to go give, particular, go and talk about us. And until you reach a critical mass that Gartner defines, and it's kind of sort of secretive because they don't let it be known that well, you don't actually make that cutoff. And this, includes between, the size of the enterprise, the number of the users, the quality of the rating. So there's a lot of work behind the scenes for us to mobilize folks who will go in and talk about us. So thank you a lot, to the social media marketing team, to,
Yes.
the digital marketing team, sales team, everybody who's been involved in kind of like mobilizing people to vote on our behalf, go talk about it.
And the other part of that too, right, is that this milestone is just as big as even with all of our efforts, right? This is not something. Ultimately, these reviews have to be initiated by the end user. They're independently verified by Gartner for their quality and who is actually responding. But of course, we don't get that information. Right, so we have to do a lot of work, and then hope for the best. Right, but everybody's really come through to help us get that critical mass. So
this is Joyce, and I'm going to just stick into really quotidian points here. The first one is there's a press release coming out later today. Everything we do with Gartner has to be approved, and I'm still waiting for that to come through. So thank you very much to the PR team for getting that around real quick, and Sid for getting your quote in real quick, and now we just hurry up and wait. So when that comes out, we're going to put a link to it on the webpage. So those of you in sales who want to share, feel free to do that. One other thing, it is not an award. We're not allowed to call it award. Please refer to it as a designation so I don't get calls from Gartner. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joyce. Designation. Word of the day.
We have 4 minutes, so I'd like to ask and encourage everybody to ask any questions that you might have. Anything that you don't understand in the slides is also perfectly fine to ask. We've tried to include links to everything that we could so that you can self-learn as well. And I see something in the chat. All right. If there are no questions, I would like to jump to the section now where we need everybody's help for the product marketing team. And then, John caught on to one thing, which was we would love to talk to and interact with more customers, whether this is on Zoom, whether this is on site. It really helps us on every aspect of, the product marketing team functions that we work on. Help us get referenceable customers, because lots of times you are the TAM or you're the engineer or you're the product manager or salesperson who has the relationship and can, softly inquire whether they would be willing to be a public reference or even a private reference. So references are of many kinds. So it might be a Gartner analyst who wants to talk to a customer. And other than the Gartner analyst and customer, nobody will ever know of what happened in that conversation, including us. So they can privately be a reference for us. So there's many different flavors of references, and the more we can get, the better it is. I would say in the last 12 to 18 months, we have gone from a handful of referenceable customers to over 100, and we want to keep increasing this number. It's really important for us. Our ears and eyes. If you see something on the website, let us know. Better yet, put in a merge request and fix it. Let us know what materials work for you or not, or what is missing. That's really important for us. And the most important thing is we need hiring referrals. We're trying to grow this team. And, I hear often, like, I know of somebody who could be a good fit. Don't hesitate. Reach out to anybody in our team to recruiting. We would love to, get more referrals to grow this team. So I'm going to visit once more. I do not see any more questions. I want to thank everybody for joining today, and see you in 8 weeks.